All right, we're going to wrap up our offensive player ranking top fives here of players that we expect to enter the draft. And I'm going to make a last minute change to mine because I didn't take to the expect to enter the draft part of this. So I'm going to drop one of my guys out and add somebody else in. But we're going to get that's good stuff.
Yeah, see, look, Dwayne doesn't want me to pick Southern Miss, so everyone's
let me tell you, it doesn't matter with that team.
Dang.
They're bad.
Look, Frank Gore,
they did cover last week. They did cover last week against App State. Still got beat, but they did cover. All right, so let's get to that offensive line, and I think we're going to have different number ones for this might be the first time this season. I think we're going to have different number one offensive linemen. I'm going to start, and I'm going to go with the guy who's been my number one offensive lineman. I think he could have been the number one offensive tackle drafted last year. I think he's the number one offensive tackle drafted this year. I'm going to stick with Penn State's Olu Fashanu. I think he's been dominant in almost every game. The only game he wasn't 100% dominant was Ohio State, and he was still dominant 95% of the game. I think Fashanu is that dude. I think he's athletic, strong. I love him at the top offensive line spot. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, no, look, I have him as my number one offensive tackle as well.
Really?
I do. The Ohio State game, 95% is being a little generous. But I think he did play well in that first half and has played consistently well this season. The size and athleticism, that upside to me puts Fashanu number one, even if he doesn't have the same consistency as my number two offensive tackle. I think it's razor thin. I'd be happy with either one, but I think what you said about Olu Fashanu from Penn State is accurate, and he'll probably will be a top 5 pick.
All right, so you think this guy could ultimately end up as a top offensive tackle in this class? The guy you have at number 2, it's Joe Alt from Notre Dame, right tackle only, or right tackle at Notre Dame, right? We're going to talk a little bit more about that later, but talk to me about Joe Alt and why you like him almost better than Olu Fashanu.
Well, he's playing left tackle. Blake Fisher's the right tackle there. So no, you're fine. I like the consistency. I mean, Joe Alt started from day one, 18 years old, freshman season, and wasn't Notre Dame has played and has been consistent in that. Is he overwhelming with his power? Is he overwhelming with with the athleticism? Not always, but the hand placement's consistent, the footwork's consistent. He plays smart. He can pick up a free rusher, plays really smart. Maybe the upside isn't there for Fashanu, but I think the consistency. Put Joe Alt on the Patriots. I think he's a 12-year left tackle who, excels under Bill Belichick, for example.
Very well could be where he ends up. I don't know if we're going to have the same number 3 or not. My number 3 is a definite upside guy who I think has flashed, but was injured a little bit this season. I'm going with Georgia's Amarius Mims, 6'7", 315. I've got him number 3 on my board. I mean, he's dominated in the SEC since he's taken over the reins there, and he seems to only be getting better. He's good now. A lot of upside, I think, with Mims.
Yeah, so I am torn on Mims. He might be on my list. I'm not sure if I think he's going to declare for the draft or not.
That's my number 4 is who I'm pulling out. And
that's my one hold up that I might pull Mims out, 6'7", 315, like you said, high upside athletic freak. I see it. But I think with the injuries, or if Georgia loses the SEC to LSU or to Alabama or something and get knocked out of the playoff, I could see him coming back to school. So I'm leaning towards not having him on my list, but would be in my top 5 if I thought he was going to declare. He very well might, and could be a first-round pick. So I don't think it's a bad option.
Right, so who's your number 3 then?
My number 3, I'm way too high on this player, and I wrote about him for the site. It's clearly one of my guys. That's Kingsley Suamataia from BYU. Just a little bit on the smaller side, but he can move. I mean, he wrecks. Moving off the snap, is a great run blocker. Crack back. He is making that BYU offense run. And you see he's on the freak list. 5-star recruit at Oregon that transferred to BYU, and I think from the time he stepped on the field, you can see the athleticism. He matches any edge rusher he faces. I think Suamatea is going to be a late riser. I think he will declare as well because of the pedigree, and you're not winning much at BYU in a year. So he's 3 on my list.
I had him at 4 on my list, wrote down to talk to him, but I just talked myself out of it because I think because of the size, what you said, I think he stays another year, adds a little more bulk. Plus, how many times do BYU players come out early?
That's true.
It doesn't seem like it happens a lot, right? So that's why I'm pulling him back out of I had him at 4. I'm pulling him back. So now I'm going to plug in Alabama's dominant, and I mean dominant. Their other 4 offensive linemen have not been dominant. The hold up, the mainstay here, the prize fighter is J.C. Latham on the right side, who at 6'6", listed at 305, I think he's bigger than that, has just mauled everybody all season long. I love J.C. Latham's game in both the run and as a pass blocker. I think he could actually go higher up the board when the process is done, but I'm moving him up to 4 on this list.
I'm gonna put him at number 5 because I'm with you. I think he does declare for the draft. I think like your list, I take Amarius Mims slightly over J.C. Latham for the upside, but I think Latham consistently productive this year on that left side. And when Alabama's offense is rolling, especially in the run game, they're going to the left side. Like once they start doing that, it works. Tommy Reese just go behind J.C. Latham and you're good. So, but he's my number 5.
So who's your number 4? Is it Mims?
No, I'm going with a guy we talked about earlier in the show. I'm going with Talise Fuaga, offensive tackle out of Oregon State. Maybe has played the best out of any offensive tackle this season that I've watched. And he's big. I mean, he's 6'6", he's 325. I thought, he could be an interior lineman potentially, but he's played really well in terms of the offense. So playing on the right side, it's probably where he plays in the NFL. But like Talise Fuaga gets his hands under you and drives you back. I mean, that the run game is working for Oregon State. He's there. I don't think he's allowed a sack this year. Just a really dominant performance of a guy coming into the year I wouldn't expect to have been in my top 5 offensive tackle.
Yeah, he stuck out to me when I was mainly focusing on Joshua Gray, who's also very good and has a chance to be drafted in the top 100.
Yeah,
he's their left tackle, as you mentioned. So J.C. Latham is going to be your 5, correct? So Latham was my 5. For this exercise, I moved him up to 4 because I don't think Suamatea is going to be in this draft class. So number 5 now on my list is a guy who has really stood out to me, from some of the tape I've watched. And I think he's another guy who's got some high upside and great length at 6'7", 315. Is Houston offensive tackle Patrick Paul. Is a guy who's really, really emerged to me a lot. I consider Graham Barton here as well, but I think Patrick Paul, high upside here. I think he's going to test well, has a chance to come down to Mobile as well and have a big week. So I'm going to go with the Cougar here.
Yeah, he's definitely that next tier for me. I love the length. I think that's going to be awesome. I think he'll get a lot of hype in Mobile for sure. It's kind of a good group of older offensive tackles, I think, after the ones that we covered. To me, that Patrick Paul's a part of. Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma, Graham Barton from Duke.
AJ Cornelius, the Rhode Island transfer at Oregon, is another guy who I think is going to get some buzz as well. And did you mention Jordan Morgan at Arizona? I don't know if you did.
I did not, but that's another good name.
That's another good name. Anthony Belton, NC State is another one. This is a good tackle class. I think is the grand way of putting it.
Now, neither of us picked an interior lineman.
We did not. So you want to touch on who I think we both have these as the top 2 guys: Cedric Von Prawn, Georgia; Cooper Beebe from Kansas State. Those are the top 2 interior offensive linemen. All right, so let's quickly recap here who we have as the top 5 offensive linemen in this draft class that we think will enter. I have at 1 Olu Fashanu, Penn State; 2 Joe Alt from Notre Dame; 3 Amarius Mims, Georgia; 4 J.C. Latham, Alabama; and 5 Patrick Paul from Houston. Shane's top 5 offensive linemen in this class that he thinks will declare: number 1 Olu Fashanu, Penn State; 2 Joe Alt, Notre Dame; 3 Kingsley Suamatea from BYU; 4 Talise Fuaga from Oregon State; and number 5 J.C. Latham from Alabama. So that is our top 5 offensive linemen in the 2024 class that we think will declare. Good year to need an offensive tackle is the answer to this question.
Yeah, the NFL needs a lot better offensive.
They need this influx.
This.